Okay. All righty. We've got a few more coming in. All right. Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you all for joining us for today's month of service presentation. My name is Nia Murray. I am the programs coordinator for Neighborhood Recovery Community Development Corporation, and we are one of the partners in the month of service collaboration. Also included is the City of Houston's Department of Neighborhoods, and joining us today, I believe she's on now, is Ms. Myra Hippolyte. Also included in the partnership is our presenting partners for today with the Harris Central Appraisal District. And Ms. Mabel will be here to introduce her team in just a moment, along with Jamie DeWong with the Harris County Tax Assessor-Collector's Office. Included also is Lone Star Legal Aid, the Earl Carl Institute, Houston Volunteer Lawyers, and the Houston Bar Association. As an FYI, if there are any attorneys that are joining us, Houston Bar Association has sponsored for attorneys to receive COE credits for attending the a month of service presentation. So any of our workshops where you see a course number, you have the opportunity to take advantage of that. So we want to welcome you for today's property tax protest valuation exemptions and payment options presentation for today. And for those that are not aware, a month of service is a collaboration of these 8 different organizations that come together on a monthly basis and offer a variety of different workshops relative to asset building, asset protection, maintaining of generational wealth, and community empowerment. Included in that is also, I'm trying to admit more people that are coming in because there's a lot of questions and a lot of information that needs to be getting out there today. But included in these types of presentations, again, are property tax workshops, anything from wills and estate planning to clearing title for inherited property, homebuyer education, financial literacy. We do coffee and conversation with the City of Houston Department representatives, and a host of other workshops every single month. We decided to come together collectively several years ago to make sure that we get information out to the community, since we all service and represent the same people, that we wanted to make sure that we created a larger impact and had outreach for more people to receive the information that most people in the community really just don't have access to, or don't know about, or don't know where to go to get their questions answered, or to get correct information when resources are available. So that's we're here to provide you information today. Also, I just want to give the disclaimer that information that is presented here today is for educational purposes only. We know that many of you have questions pertaining to your specific personal issue, but we want to have you guys to ask whatever question it is that you like. Feel free to either type your question into the chat, or at the end of the presentation, you have the opportunity to unmute yourself and ask your questions directly, since we do have the experts here available and ready to ask those questions. And also just wanted to make sure that you all know that we are recording this presentation, as well as broadcasting live on our social media platform on Facebook at Amos Houston TX. So please, when you do ask your questions, make sure that you try to keep your questions to be as general as you possibly can, so that way your personal detail information is not getting out there. We do have representatives that are monitoring the chat so that they can answer your questions directly. However, again, we don't want your personal detail information, your specific address, that kind of information getting out there for everybody to see. But you do have the opportunity to still ask any questions that is that you like. We want to try to keep you guys engaged as much as we possibly can. So we are going to go ahead and actually get started. We're going to introduce our partners and our presenters, and we are going to move right along. So we will start with Ms. Hippolyte. Is she? Oh, yep, there she goes.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me, Ms. Nia?
Yes.
Okay, sorry about that. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Myra Hippolyte, and I work with the City of Houston Department of Neighborhoods under the direction of Division Manager Paul Green. on behalf of Mayor Sylvester Turner and Director Tacosta Francis, we want to welcome you to the Month of Service Partnership. This partnership is all about giving back free information to all the Houston, Harris County, state of Texas community. Today, guys, I just finished a job fair out in Cashmere Gardens. Yesterday, we had coffee and conversation. I just found out that there is a big job fair with the city of Houston on May 3rd at George R. Brown, and there are some departments that will be hiring. So if you are looking for a job on May 3rd, or go to the City of Houston Human Resource Careers website, and they will give you instructions on where to go. But it will be on May 3rd at George R. Brown Center. Guys, the Month of Service is a great, amazing partnership with wonderful partners that are always giving back free information to each one of you. Take this time to learn and get educated, because this is free information. We want to let you know that you're not by yourself, and you have a group, a team of partners that's here to walk right by your side. Thanks, guys, and I'm going to jump off and then jump back in and talk later. Thank you, everyone.
Okay. All right, Miss Mabel.
Sure, thank you, Nia. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mabel Menifee. I'm with the Harris Central Appraisal District, and we're part of the partnership. Each month we bring information about HCAD, its role in the property tax system, and this time of year we garner quite a bit of interest, because if you are out there listening and you are a property owner, you know that this is a time of year that we send out valuation notices to all property owners, which tell you what we have determined, what HCAD has determined as the value on your property. We sent out about 98% of those valuation notices for 2023. So most folks across the county probably have theirs in hand now. And yes, values have gone up throughout most of the county, though not quite as much as it has in some years in most cases. We are, along with the Harris Central Appraisal District, today that we have brought in several of our residential property division experts who are going to be talking to you about the process, how HCAD works under the property tax system laws and the property tax code in the state of Texas. And we also have, you're also going to hear from, and actually she's going to go first this time, you're also going to hear from the tax office and their role in the property tax system. Many people get our roles confused because HCAD is primarily values property. We also hear the protests or appeals for people who don't agree with that value, and we manage exemptions. Once we have settled on value, that information goes to the jurisdictions, who then set the tax rates. Please remember that at HCAD, we do not set tax rates, nor do we collect taxes. That process, the tax collection process, as well as the tax bills are sent out by the your local tax assessors. For most people in Harris County, they're going to get a bill or a portion of their tax bills from the office of Ann Harris Bennett, Tax Assessor-Collector, and we have Representative Jamie Duong here today to lead off to talk about the tax collector's role in the property tax system. And then after that, it's going to be followed by representatives from HCAD. We have with us Sarah Hatch, who is going to be leading a PowerPoint presentation about HCAD and the property tax system. Also on the Zoom conference are going to be Joseph Carr as well as Jamie Stanley. There are also senior residential property division employees at HCAD who will be able to answer additional questions either through the chat room that you can type those in, or you'll also be able to, at the end of the presentations, Nia's going to open it up for audio, and then you can ask your questions directly of them. Our primary goal today is to explain the process of how Harris Central Appraisal District works, and also we'll be talking about the protest process, as well as the another way that the tax code allows you to save additional money on property taxes, and that's through exemption. So we're going to talk a little bit about exemptions to remind you how they can save you money as well. And with that, I am going to turn it over to Jamie. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Mabel. Thank you so much. It looks like we have a very packed house today, Nia. We've got
and they're still coming in. So
that's
so,
awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. That means, you know, we're getting the message out. Welcome, everyone. My name is Jamie Duong. I'm with the Harris County Tax Assessor-Collector's Office, Ms. Ann Harris Bennett. And with me today is Vicki Fetsura. She's our research specialist. And we just want to take a moment to welcome you to this workshop. You know, our goal is to provide you with information that's useful, whether you're looking to own a home or you're currently a homeowner, or, you know, and ways to save you money. And so we're reserving the majority of the time for the appraisal district, as this is their hot season. You know, as Mabel had said, you probably have received your value notice already. But let me go through a little bit with the property tax side of it. And, you know, if there's nothing that you get out of it, we want you to understand that we're here to help you. And if you still have unpaid balances on your property tax account, please reach out to us. We can help you set up a payment plan so that at least you can avoid a lot of the fees. Okay, so our goal is to save you money and to provide you with information that are useful in your course of home ownership. So let me start.
And while you're doing that, I just want to remind everyone that if you do have questions, that representatives will be monitoring the chat. Some of those questions we will go back and read aloud, because some folks are only joining us by phone and cannot see the chat, as well as on Facebook, so that we can ask those questions for everybody to actually kind of hear, because some people may have the same questions and need the same answers. So, so just please also keep that in mind. In addition to that, when you, for our presenters, as you are giving your contact information, if you could read it aloud also, so that way the folks that are also joining on Facebook can hear, since they can't see the chat.
Okay, so does everybody see that, my screen now?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. So let's start. Again, everyone, welcome. My name is Jamie Duong. I'm with the Harris County Tax Office on behalf of Ms. Ann Harris Bennett, your property tax assessor collector here for Harris County. We welcome you to this session. And as Nia had said, if you have questions, you know, please type them into the chat room. And helping us in the chat room today is Vicki Fetsura. She's awesome. She knows more about property tax than I can imagine knowing. Okay, so we'll do our best to help you. Now, the tax office, you know, we collect for over 79 taxing units, and it's counting up, but, you know, in Harris County, there are over 500 taxing units. So we collect only a portion of that, and of what we collect, you know, the money goes toward helping local services and providing your, you know, street repairs or law enforcement controlled, or funding your school. Okay, and these can be monies from, you know, businesses, skyscrapers, or just local residential properties, or even fleets and business personal properties. Now, how does that process work? It works first by determining the taxable value, which you are in the midst of it right now. The appraisal district has sent out the value notices for the year. This is, let me reinforce again, this is the opportunity for the property owners to work with the appraisal district to get to an understanding, a reconciliation of an acceptable value for your property. So, as normally it's May 15th is the deadline, or 30 days after you receive your value notices. If you intend on protesting, you need to submit that form in to notify the appraisal district to, you know, that you're intending to protest your value. So once, and the appraisal district presentation, they will go into it in further detail. Please take notes. Please jot down as far as some useful tips that they provided. You know, again, our goal is to provide you with information so that you can be successful at your protest. Now, you're going to sit down with the appraisers and determine the value, get a settlement on the value of your property. Once that's done, the next process is going to be tax rate, and the tax rate is set by the local taxing units. And this usually happens around June or July when the appraisal values are determined. Now the local governing bodies say, how much do we need from the public funding to run everything, so this is where they come in with the rate. Now, on behalf of Ms. Ann Harris Bennett, we encourage you to call up your state legislature, call up your representative, and participate in these tax rates hearings. Know what they're using, how they're using your tax money. Have a participation in this process. Now, once that's done, so you already have the taxable value. The rates are set by the taxing unit. Now, if you have any exemptions that you may qualify for, you apply for that. So the tax office takes the value multiplied by the tax rates. We apply any applicable exemptions to your account, and this is where we produce the tax bill. Okay, tax bill normally goes out around end of October or beginning of December. Beginning of November, but by December, most tax bill would be available online. Okay, and like I say, for right now, if you still have an unpaid tax balance, you can go up to our website, www.hctax.net, and do a search on your property, and you can print out a tax bill or you can make a payment there. Okay, just something to remind you, if you're making a payment via mail, please make sure to include this coupon here. It helps to make sure that we post your payment correctly. Okay, so quick touch on this recent changes. We'll talk about right now the current legislature is meeting in Austin, determining ways to reduce your taxes, and there are several options that are being discussed right now. That's why we want to encourage you to follow the news, to reach out your local representative, and to get a better understanding of what is being discussed now in Austin. Now, some of the recent changes that were passed from the last sessions that affect your taxes now. For example, for Harris County, the exemption amount has increased for property owners that are over 65, disabled veterans or surviving spouse. That exemption amount increased from $220,000 to $250,000. Okay, and for residents that are in the city of Houston, for that same category, over 65, disabled or disabled veterans, your exemptions from taxation amount goes from $160,000 to $260,000. And generally, for all property owners, the school exemptions goes from $25,000, to $40,000 for the general homestead exemptions for the school. So these has to be to your primary homestead residents to get this exemption. And of course, this has already started. So this exemption has already been factored into your property tax bill that we have. Now, this graph shows as far as the power of exemptions, meaning if you live in this house and this is your primary home, or if you're over 65 or a disabled veteran or a surviving spouse, over 55-year-old, of anyone in this over 65 or disabled category, please apply for the exemptions. HCAD has further details a little bit in their presentations about this, but exemptions must be applied on the first year. And when you apply for the exemptions, you're claiming that eligibility. And this graph shows an example calculations that we have for an average residential property in Harris County with a value of about $325,000. If you don't have any exemptions on that property, your tax bill, you're looking at probably around $7,100. Okay, and if this is your primary home and you have a general homestead exemptions, you're saving about a third of that tax bill. Okay, and again, for folks that are over 65, disabled or disabled veterans, about 2/3 of your tax bill is tax savings. Now, like I said, the first time you qualify for that exemption, you need to apply for it. And it takes you submitting the supporting documentations. Do not give up on that process, because if you don't apply for this exemption, it's money that you've left on the table. Okay. And if you need help, we're here to help you. We can help answer your questions. And the appraisal district has a great resource on their website that will help you navigate through this process. Now, there's a tax benefit for folks that are property owners that are over 65, disabled or disabled veterans. You know, you can qualify for what is known as a tax ceiling, a tax freeze. Generally, we call it a tax limitations. And what it is once you apply for the over 65 exemptions and you qualify for that exemption, your school taxes and certain jurisdictions tax that have opted for this option, your school taxes is frozen at the time that you are approved for that over 65 exemption. Okay. Now, this is not a frozen on all taxes, just on the taxing unit that has opted for this exemptions. And it basically means, for example, the school tax will remain unchanged, okay, throughout the year of your ownership, unless, you know, you sell the property or unless you do major renovations that would cause the property value to be reassessed again, okay? And like I say, this helps so that you can, you know, financially juggle your tax bill and the expenses that are there. Now, something else to consider for property owners that are over 65, disabled or disabled veterans or surviving spouses of over 55 years old, of anyone in that category. If you are unable to pay your taxes and you have outstanding taxes, or even if you don't have outstanding taxes, you can apply for a tax deferral. And what a tax deferral does, it basically says, hey, you don't have to pay the taxes. What is unpaid on your account remains there, and it only accrues a 5% interest per annum per year on that unpaid account. And basically, you don't pay it and you're not penalized because the taxes are unpaid. The only time that, you know, of course, you would have to apply through the appraisal district. There's a form, an affidavit that you need to submit to the appraisal district. And once that's approved, you know, tax office is notified of the deferral on your account. We code your property with that. Now, that doesn't mean you can't pay your taxes when you get your bill. You can pay any amount. This is just in case you don't want to pay your taxes, or you, oh, why is the light on? Or that you need extra time and you're not penalized for that. So a deferral is a postponement of your taxes. It is not a cancellation of your taxes. So let me remind you, it is not a cancellation of your taxes. And I've always called it as a safety insurance in case you need extra time or in case you need assistance, so that, you know, when you are not paying that taxes, you're not having collection attorneys reaching out to get you to pay. Okay. Now, if you still have a mortgage on your account, we encourage you to contact your mortgage company, discuss this with them before you file the deferral. Okay. And if you have questions on this, please contact us. We'll be happy to help. And the appraisal district also has information that's available to help you as well too. Okay. So what happens when we send out a tax bill around end of October, beginning November, and you know, you may be able to pay it, you may not be able to pay it. Who knows? By the end of January, which is usually our deadline to pay property tax before the penalty and interest kicks in. By the time, even if you have tax open unpaid tax balances, and don't just leave them ignored. Contact us. We have payment plans that we can help you with. You know, the most popular one, for example, is the quarterly payment plan. This is for the homestead of property owners that are over 65, disabled veterans, or surviving spouses of anyone in that category. You know, basically it takes your unpaid tax balance, divvy it up into 4 payments, and then you pay by those those dates, for example, the due dates end of January, the end of March, end of July, end of May. If you can pay according to those due dates, there are no penalty, there are no interest. Okay, but most importantly, your account must have that over 65 exemption coded on that, or it must have that disabled or disabled veterans coding on that. Okay, so that's one type of payment plans. The other type of payment plans we have are the homestead payment plan, which is if you're just a general homestead residence. Okay, or if you have a rental property, we have other payment plans for you. Or if you just have a business and you have unpaid taxes on that. Of course, all of these payment plans, you can go as far out as, from 12 months to 36 months. Okay. And of course, the purpose of any of these payment plans is to help you avoid attorney's fees. Okay. It's very important. The payment plans are there to help you avoid attorney's fees, which means you could potentially pay less if you are in a payment plan than you would just pay as you go. Okay, so some payment options for you. Easiest, you can pay online at www.hctax.net, or of course, you can pay by mail. Just make sure the postmark is on or before the due dates, okay? Because we store those postmarks, and if it's late, for example, if the due date is, January 31st and your postmark is February the 1st, guess what? It will incur a 7% penalty and interest. So if you're waiting to the last minute to make that payment, please make sure you stand in line and see them postmark that date, because the tax office goes by the postmark date. You can also pay by telephone. The phone number is 713-274-2273. Or if you're paying by cash, stop by any one of our 16 branches and submit the payment. Now, we accept credit card payments, which has a 2.45% convenience fee that is charged by your financial institutions. This fee does not go to the tax office, okay? Or you can also pay by check or e-check, which are free. Okay, and as I've said before, if you're paying by cash, you need to go to one of the branches to make the cash payments, or, better yet, buy a cashier's check and mail it in. Do not mail cash to the tax office, please. And again, if you have questions, you can always contact us. We have resources and information online at www.hctax.net. You can email to the tax office at tax.office@hctx.net, or of course, you can call us via phone at 713-274-8000. Again, we try to provide as much information as we can, and if there are information that was not provided in this workshop, you're welcome to reach out and contact us, and we'll do our best to help you. Thank you so much for your time, and thank you for attending our workshop today. So I hand this over to the Appraisal District, Sarah Hatch, who will present the HCAT side of this property valuation. Thank you.
All right. Let me get my screen shared here.
Again, as a reminder, while the second part of the presentation is coming up, if you do have questions, please feel free to type those into the chat. Or if you're watching on Facebook, into the comment section, and I'll make sure I read those aloud for everyone. Okay, go ahead, Sarah.
Okay. All right, my name is Sarah Hatch. I'm one of the valuation analysts for residential property at Harris Central Appraisal District. So I'm going to talk a little bit about what the role of appraisal districts is, about our valuation notices, about protesting your value, and about exemptions. Again, we've already gone over the information about tax bill calculations and payments. So the purpose of the appraisal district is to support to value properties for the purpose of property taxes, and that supports those critical local services like schools, police, fire protection, hospitals, road maintenance, and other things of that nature. Texas has no state income tax, and so property taxes are a very large part of how we cover those kind of necessary services for people. So property tax laws start with the Texas State Legislature. They meet and look at those laws every so often and revise them when they need to. But that is where the tax laws come from that govern everything that we do and why we do it the way we do it. So central appraisal districts, some of our responsibilities include appraising all county property, residential, commercial, agricultural, industrial, and business personal property. And our responsibility is to value all of those different types of property at 100% of market value. That's what we are bound to do by that state tax law. We are also bound to value those as of January 1st of each year. Our other responsibilities include administering exemptions and then certifying the appraisal rolls, which then we turn over to the taxing jurisdictions so that they can set their rates and send out the actual tax bills. So the CADs were created initially to keep the system fair. They were established in 1979 by the Texas legislature as a subunit of state government. They were the Texas Comptroller of Public Accounts provides guidance and oversight for CADs. We're required to appraise all property at market value and at 100% of market value. And then we have the appraisal review boards, or the ARB, which are separate from HCAD, but they are the board that hears appeals. So some important dates to keep in mind for our appraisal calendar. Again, January 1st, you hear a lot because that's one of the most important dates. That's the date that we must value every property as of that date. So regardless of what the condition or what the situation of the property might have been a month before that, a month after that, we're looking at January 1st to value the property. And that way we're valuing everything as of the same date, and then there's equity that way. May 15th is another very important date. As we said, May 15th is the deadline to file your protest of your value. May 15th or 30 days after the date on your notice, but we'll talk a little bit more about that in a couple of slides. So protests must be filed by this date for any value change to occur before values are provided to jurisdictions and tax bills are calculated. So please, if you have any inclination to protest the value that HCAD has put on your property, please make sure you file that protest by May 15th. That is your method of doing that. Some other important dates are around October or November. Those tax bills get mailed once we've certified the appraisal rolls and handed those over to the jurisdictions and they've adopted the rates. Then those bills actually get mailed out around October or November. And then February 1st of the following year is the delinquency date. So right now we've just sent out the notices for the tax year of 2023. And on February 1st of 2024, the taxes for this tax year will become delinquent. So make sure that those are paid by January 31st. So some of HCAD's roles include value changes. The home values are reviewed annually by HCAD appraisers. Sales prices can go up or down due to various market forces. And that is primarily what indicates the market value for the properties that we're valuing. The best indication of market value is what similar homes sold for during that year. And so based on what the sales in the area are doing, that is what we look at to determine the values of the properties. So once we have that full market value that we're bound to use, we take that market value minus any exemptions that are applied, the appraised value, which takes some of those exemptions into account, minus any other exemptions that are applied, and you take that final taxable value times the tax rate, and that is what is on your tax bill. So the taxable value of your home times the tax rate that gets adopted is the actual tax dollars that you owe on that tax bill. And those tax rates are set by the jurisdictions after the appraisal rolls are handed over. So HCAT appraisals, we are again required by the tax code to be at 100% of market value. So, and the state conducts a study every 2 years of all the CADs to ensure that we are in compliance with this. Every 2 years, they do a study to ensure that we are not under appraising or over appraising based on the market, but that we are at 100% of that market value. This is conducted by the process of mass appraisal, the valuation is. So we're valuing whole neighborhoods or areas at a time. We're not looking at each individual home as its own case. We're looking at the trends of a neighborhood and valuing the neighborhood as a whole based on all the sales information that we have from that area. And again, that value is derived based on the sales. So here's an example that's far too small, but we'll have a closer view of it here in a moment. But an example of that annual value notice letter that goes out. And includes the market value, again, the value at which the property would sell for to a willing buyer on the open market under normal circumstances. And then it also includes your appraised value, which might be the same as your market value, especially if you do not have a homestead exemption on the property, but it may be lower than your market value because of the 10% limit of increase for homestead properties. So you do have, every property owner has a right to protest the value that HCAD puts on the home. The protest deadline is on the form. You have a unique I-file number on your value notice up toward the top right-hand corner of the page that you will use to file your protest. So again, the deadline is May 15th or 30 days from the date of the notice. And so I know sometimes there can be confusion about whether it's 30 days after you receive it, but it's actually 30 days from the date that's printed on there. So when you receive that notice, there will be a date on there that was the date that we mailed it. So it's 30 days from that date or May 15th, whichever is later. So your protest applies to market value or to equity. Meaning essentially you either feel that based on the sales in your area that your market value should be different, or based on how your neighbors are what the market value of your neighbors is compared to yours, that you don't feel that that's fair or equitable. So here's a closer view of that notice letter. And again, we've got highlighted there on the top right corner that I-file number that you would use to file your protest. And you see sort of in the just left of the middle toward the top there is the date that it was mailed out. So you see March 31st, 2020 on this example. And so that date is what you would use to calculate your 30 days past that date for your deadline. So there are different ways that you can file your protest. There's just the standard old paper form that you can mail or submit electronically. You can also go online to our website and iFile. You can also opt into the iSettle program online, which allows you to potentially receive an offer via email without having to actually either log in or come into the office for a hearing. And then you have an informal hearing, which is either virtual or in person. You are meeting with an HCAT appraiser to discuss your opinion of your market value and go over our evidence of your market value and see if you can come to an agreement. And after that, so just to clarify, the iSettle is a virtual form where you don't actually have to log on to a meeting and discuss. You can just submit your information and you may receive an email with an offer of value that you can either accept or reject. If you've done that, then that sort of takes the place of an informal hearing. And if you decide that that is not an agreeable value for you, then you would go on to a formal hearing. Same thing is true of the informal hearing. If you go to an informal hearing, either in person or online, and are not able to settle your value that way, then you can go forward to a formal hearing, which is with the Appraisal Review Board. And again, we have both virtual and in-person options for those. And we now, within the last year or two, also have an option of either having a 3-person panel or a 1-person panel with just one ARB member. There are additional methods beyond that. If the formal hearing is not satisfactory, you do have options including arbitration beyond that. So at least 2 weeks before your scheduled hearing date, our HCAD evidence is provided. Typically, especially if you've filed online, then it will be available online in that same place where you filed. So that's provided to the property owner 14 days prior to a scheduled hearing. It includes a lot of information, including sales within your immediate neighborhood. It can include sales in other surrounding neighborhoods. It can include interactive maps that put those nearby sales into perspective and other points of important property data. And there will be an example of what that page looks like that shows all those different pieces of information. Now, it's important to know that because of state confidentiality laws, this information can only be disclosed after a protest is filed. This information is considered confidential outside of the confines of your protest. And so if you want to see all the sales that we have information about in your neighborhood, you will need to file your protest and be able to see that HCAD evidence that gets created for your property, for your protest. So here's an example of that web page where you can see all the different types of evidence. So this top, the top section has information about your property, about what type of property it is, the land size, the living area, square footage. And then below that, under the hearing evidence section, that top one called residential general hearing evidence is our main evidence packet that includes the sales in your immediate neighborhood, information about your account, an equity, an analysis of some comparable properties to see if we've noticed you fairly and equitably compared to your neighbors. And then also those comparable sales and looking at some of those for comparability as well. There are also vacant land sales in there and some other resources as well. And then below that, we have sales transactions for other nearby neighborhoods that are close by and similar to your neighborhood. And then we have those land sales maps that are interactive and can kind of show you where the sales are in comparison to your home. So when you are making a case for what you feel the market value should be for your property, there are several different things you can provide to us. Some of those things include a current sale of the subject. If you just bought your home within the last year or just sold your home within the last year for a different value than what we noticed your value at, you can bring that information in, because the best indication of what your home would sell for on the open market is what your home actually sold for on the open market. So if you did have a sale of your property during the previous year, that's an excellent piece of information for us to consider. Also, current sales of similar properties. And now again, we are valuing as of January 1st of 2023. And so we are looking at sales that occurred during the year leading up to January 1st of 2023. And we are trying to use those sales to get an indication of that date. And so sales that are, multiple months after that date are less likely to be useful. You want sales that are closer to that date of January 1st. Also, same thing goes with pictures of condition of your property as close to January 1st as you can get them. We want to see if you have issues of condition with your property, if there are things that are needing repairs or things that are particularly affecting your property that you feel lower its value. We want pictures of those that are current. And it also helps if you are needing repairs to your home that you bring in estimates for those repairs, just to help us kind of get an idea of the extent of those and what it would cost you to repair. Other things you may bring in include a foundation report. If you have foundational issues and you've had to have an engineer come out and do a foundation report, that's a helpful piece of information as well. Really, anything else that you feel helps your case for your market value being different than what we've noticed it at, you can provide. So just some helpful hints, especially for the ARB hearings or those formal hearings with the ARB panel, is please come prepared. They do try to make sure that they keep the hearings to approximately 15 minutes in total, just to be respectful of everybody's time. We have a lot of protests to go through, and they want to make sure that we're using everybody's time well, and that we're not keeping any property owners there longer than they need to be to come to an agreement or a decision. And so please make sure that you have your evidence organized, ideally in the same order as you plan to talk about your evidence. Bring enough copies of evidence for yourself, for the appraiser, and for as many panel members are going to be in your formal hearing. So if you're in a 3-member panel, bring 5 copies of evidence, 1 for you, 1 for the appraiser, and 1 for each of those 3 panel members. Temporary disaster exemption, we do have now in effect after the January 26th tornadoes, we do have a temporary disaster exemption. The information about that is that it is for property damaged by a disaster. That disaster has to be a disaster declaration by the governor. The property owner has 105 days to file that. So the last day to apply for that is May 11th this year for those January 26th tornadoes. So please make sure if you had damage from that, that you apply by that date. That damage must be at least 15% of the value. We don't necessarily expect you to know for sure whether it's, 15, 14, 17. If you feel that your property has been damaged at least 15%, file that by May 11th. Now that is based on the 2023 value, and application can be found on the HCAD website at www.hcad.org, and under the section for forms on the website, you can find that disaster exemption. Okay, so speaking of exemptions, what are they? How can they save me money? How do I get them? Again, the exemptions are administered by HCAD. They are used by the taxing authorities in calculating your property tax bill. So those exemptions are something that's been put into effect by the legislature to give relief to property owners, especially for their primary homestead. And we put those exemptions on the accounts, and then the taxing jurisdictions use them when they calculate those bills. And okay, so that reduces the appraised value before the tax rates are applied. The most common exemptions are the general residence homestead. Again, that's for your primary homestead property, your primary residence. You can put that on just that one primary residence. You have an over 65 exemption once you are 65 years of age or older. There's an over 55 surviving spouse that goes along with that. There's a disability exemption and a disabled veterans exemption, and there's also an heirship exemption. So the general residence homestead, you have to own and occupy the home as your primary residence. There is documentation required. Typically, we want to see a driver's license or some other kind of identification that lists that address as your permanent address to show that it is your primary residence. And the general residence homestead provides a 10% appraisal increase cap. So what that means essentially is if 1 year your home is valued at $100,000, then the next year, even if the market soars and your market value is $130,000, you're limited to a 10% appraised value increase. So it would go from 100 to 110,000 to make sure that that taxable value is not increasing more than 10% on your residence homestead. There's also a $40,000 school tax exemption by state law. And there is a new 2022 law that allows this homestead exemption to prorate to the date of ownership. It used to only go into effect on January 1st of the following year after you acquire the property. And now you can put that on immediately and prorate it to the date that you own the property. So some of the other common exemptions, the over 65 and disability exemption. The over 65, you qualify for the entire year that you turn 65. So if you turn 65 next month, you qualify for this entire tax year. The disability, you qualify for the entire year that you become eligible to receive disability benefits under federal old age, survivors, and disability insurance. And the benefits for both of these exemptions are the school tax ceiling or freeze, receive $10,000 exemption for school taxes in addition to the $40,000 granted to the resident's homestead, and you're eligible for tax deferral and to pay taxes in installments without penalties. So those are benefits that go along with either the over 65 or the disability. The over 55 surviving spouse exemption, you qualify for this if your deceased spouse died in a year in which they qualified for the over 65 or disability exemption. And if you as the surviving spouse are at least 55 years of age or older on the date that your spouse passed away, you receive all the over 65 exemption benefits that we talked about on the previous slide. And under these circumstances, the school tax ceiling continues and is transferable, and you are eligible for tax deferral and to pay taxes in installments without penalties, just like for the over 65. So the airship exemption, we have some information here about that. This is part of the general homestead application, as well as the over 65 and the disability. All these exemptions that we've talked about are part of this general homestead application form, and there are different sections of it that you can check off if they apply for the other exemptions. So you see highlighted here, is the property for which this application is submitted an heir property? Do other heir property owners occupy the property? And so those are the check boxes that you'll be looking for on that general homestead application if you are seeking an heirship exemption. So some important questions regarding this. Is the property for which this application is submitted an heir property? Do other heir property owners occupy the property? The information that is needed with your application is an affidavit establishing ownership of interest in the property. This can be an heirship affidavit or Form 50-114-A. You'll need a copy of the death certificate for the prior owner of the property and a copy of the property's most recent utility bill and a citation of any court record relating to the applicant's ownership of the property if available. So if you have whatever kind of legal document you have stating that that you are now the owner of the property. So effective January 1st, 2022, as I said, we now have the immediate residence homestead exemption. You no longer have to wait until January 1st of the following year to apply. You qualify upon occupying the home. Now you must apply before the first anniversary of the date the property was acquired if you want to put the immediate residence homestead exemption on. If the home was previously owned and receiving exemptions, the previous owner's exemptions will remain for the remainder of the applicable tax year. If the previous owner did not have exemptions or the home was never occupied, the exemption will be granted as follows. That first year when you acquire the home, it will be prorated to the date that you own it. And then the second year, you will have the full exemption, which establishes that cap eligibility base year. In other words, that second year when you have it for the entire year is what starts that 10% increase cap limit. So how to apply for an exemption? Application can be filed by mail, email, our mobile app, or online at hcad.org. Once your exemptions have been applied to your account, you will receive notification of the approval. You must include a copy of your driver's license with matching address. So like I said, to show that that is your primary residence, we want to see a driver's license or some other kind of identification with that address that you're applying for. This is a screenshot of what our main page of our website looks like. That's www.hcad.org. And that is, you see up towards the top there, we have different sections that you can access different resources. And the one just right of the middle is forms. That's where you're going to find the exemption applications and any other forms that you would typically need in order to not file your protest. That's going to be through the iFile. But to apply for exemptions and other things of that nature. And here's our contact information. We are located at 13013 Northwest Freeway in Houston, Texas, 77040. And our website is www.hcad.org. Our general phone number is 713-957-7800. And you can email us at help@hcad.org. I believe that is all I've got.
Okay, thank you very much, Sarah. Ms. Mabel, is there anything else that you'd like to add for Sarah's presentation or any other information you'd like to include before we get to the questions? Because Sarah did a really good job, very thorough.
I think not. Sarah, exactly what you said. She hopefully did a very thorough job. And actually, we encourage people to ask questions because sometimes that can also uncover any misunderstandings that people might have in terms of the information that was presented. So why don't we get started?
Okay, all right. I know that you guys had your representatives that were answering the questions in the chat. So, but there are a few of them that I just kind of want to go through and ask aloud so that the folks that are joining us on Facebook can actually see, because these are some of the common questions that get asked a lot. First, Jamie, I believe this one would be for you. What if a property was on a tax deferral and the owner is now deceased and left no will? What is to be done?
Okay, so first of all, the taxes goes with the property. I know that a month of service has a course on wills and, join us on our course for that. But if the property owner left the property without any will, of course, the taxes will continue to apply to the account. But if there's a deferral, is there a deferral on that account?
Yeah, that's
Okay.
what I said it was, yes.
Okay, so if there's a deferral on that, one of two things happens. Either the appraisal district through its research picks up that the property owner has passed away and immediately removes any of the applicable exemptions that's out there, or they can also send out a verification for the property owner to supply the information to justify that, hey, what we're getting is, correct information. So on two assumptions, the first one, if there's no changes in the deferral status or no changes in the exemption status, of course, the taxes continue to add on to that until the heirs, goes through and probate. And of course, by the time they probate, if it's past that 180 days and there's that tax deferral on that, the full assessment of penalty and interest would be attached to the account. Okay, so of course we encourage the heirs that, hey, once there's an ownership change, or once that the actual owner of that property has deceased, notify the proper authority, notify the appraisal district so that they can make that adjustment. Because let's, for example, if this just happens last week and you notified the appraisal district, then come to the tax office and says, hey, I need to see how much taxes due on this property. Can you run an estimate for me? Because within that 180 days period, you can pay without the additional penalties as if that property still has that exemption. So Tom is very important on this case. Now, the other option is, for example, nothing's done by it. The heirs does not notify the appraisal district, doesn't ask the tax office for an estimate on how much taxes is due. They're just going to go, through the days, through the months, through the years. And for example, 2 years later, the appraisal district notices that the property information changed because, they go through their verification process and it comes back negative. So now the exemption is removed. Guess what? The full penalty and interest on that property and all unpaid taxes is now attached to that property. And when you go through probate, because it doesn't have a will, you go through probate, then somebody has to, whoever ultimately owns this property will have to decide how that tax is going to be resolved because it's not going away. Yeah, very complicated. Get a lawyer. But more importantly, be upfront, be honest, notify the proper authority, and we'll do our best to help you guide through it.
But more importantly than that is to have the conversation with your heirs. If you
Yes.
are a senior and you are receiving a tax deferral, you need to make sure that somebody knows that 180 days after you pass, that those taxes will become due.
Yes.
For the seniors that don't communicate, with their heirs, because a lot of times, a lot of seniors are very private. They don't want people in their business. They don't want them to know that they're going through some financial difficulties and they've received this deferral. Ask, find out, make sure that you go through paperwork or what have you to find out if there is actually a deferral on that property. In addition to that, there are some people that know that there's a deferral or there's an actual exemption. The same thing happens when someone passes away and they've got the over 65 exemption. It was your grandmother's property or your great uncle's property and you're living in it, but the exemption has been still on the property for 5 years. Well, once the county finds out that now this person has deceased, but the exemption's been there for 5 years. Well, now all of those 5 years that you guys have received that exemption, that payment now becomes completely due at the full value of what those taxes were, minus that exemption, plus the penalties, plus the interest. So have the conversations. Definitely have the conversations.
Absolutely.
Okay, let's see. How do I know if an exemption is applied after we have purchased a home?
I'll take on first on the tax side of it. Well, first, you would have to apply through the appraisal districts. And if there are forms online and, very importantly, I would say my HCAD associate, they would say, make sure you include your driver's license that has that information on there, because if it doesn't have the information, the address on there, and then of course, once that exemption is approved and on that following tax bill, when we send it out, we would have an update to the tax bill and it'll show, the name on that. You can always check our website, www.hctax.net. Or you can also go to HCAD and search up on the account and the property, and it's going to show if there's an exemption on that.
Also to note for new homeowners or even for existing homeowners, you have to actually apply. It doesn't automatically just come in, get attached to your account once you actually purchase your home. You have to go through the process and apply.
And I will also say one thing with that. If you're a new homeowner, you have 1 year to apply for your immediate residential homestead exemption. 1 year from the time that you move in the home to get that prorated exemption on. After that, you will have to apply for the following year.
Correct. There was a note in the chat that follow up to your information, Nia, that's about the how do I know about my exemptions? And then the follow up was this, hey, I see homestead multiple, but not over 65. Well, let me jump ahead on behalf of the appraisal district. This is for the protection of the property owner. A while ago back, there was a legislative bill that comes on that says, if the property owner is disabled, veterans, or, just over 65 or so, we don't want to label that on the internet so that, you have predators out there that knows, hey, this property is being owned by someone that's elderly, that's over 65 years old, or that's disabled. We don't want them to become a target of crooks and scams. So for that purpose, if it's a homestead that belongs to anyone in that special category, it'll just be labeled residential multiples. That's it. Am I right, HCAT friends?
That is correct.
Okay. In regards to the exemption, is the exemption for only disabled veterans or for any veteran? I think Ashley answered that.
I'm sorry. Yes, it's only for disabled veterans. You have to be disabled from 10% to 100% or total disabled unemployed, stating that you cannot work at all and you're a total disabled veteran.
Okay. And then something else, Mabel, I want to make sure that I bring this up every time now, since we found this out a couple of months ago. For over 65 exemptions, over 65 exemption is 100% at 100% ownership for married couples. if you are a mother, daughter, father, mother, parent and child that are purchasing a home together, you only get your share of the ownership in the property at 65% exemption, correct?
Correct.
That is
Okay.
correct. The
All right.
Texas law recognizes only married couples as one.
Mhm. Okay, had to make sure I notated that for one of my clients. She and her mother had purchased a house together, and they assumed that she would get the total exemption for the entire property because she actually lived there, but she only got 50% of the value was at the 65%, 65 and older exemption. Okay, what does it mean for that value of the market versus the appraised value? Again, can you guys reiterate that part?
We will
What's the
let
difference in appraised market value versus
Jamie,
market value versus appraised value?
Yeah,
Joe,
so
go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
I'll go ahead. Market value versus appraised value. The appraised value takes into account that 10% increase limit for your residence homestead property. So the market value goes wherever the sales will go. So you may be, like I said, you may be at 100,000 market value one year, and the next year everything that looks like your home in the neighborhood sells for 150. We have to appraise at 100% of market value. So our market value is going to go toward that 150. But since you're protected by your homestead exemption to a 10% increase on your appraised value, you'll go from 100 to 110,000. It'll only go up 10%. So your appraised value may be considerably lower than your market value if the sales in your neighborhood were very strong and your market value went up quite a bit, and you're limited to a 10% increase on your appraised value from the previous year. So that's,
And can we also add to that, just to kind of keep that idea in the forefront, that protests are going, whenever you protest, it is going to be, you are going to be protesting your market value, not your appraised value.
right. Yeah, when you protest, we're dealing again with sales and market value. So the protests are for market value, not appraised value. And equity protests, same thing. We're not looking at what your appraised value is compared to your neighbor's appraised value. We're looking at your market value compared to your neighbor's market value.
Okay. Valuation notices, are they only mailed?
They're typically mailed. I believe that if you have previously gone online on our website and opted into electronic documents, that you would get an email telling you your value notice is available now, but they're more typically mailed.
You can, and I'm not sure if this is new or not, but you can also find them on your online. If you go into the property search, pull up your property, and go down towards the middle of the page, there's going to be a place you can click that says value notice that will open that up. However, if you're planning to protest, it's not going to contain your iFile number. That you would need to pull from the paper protest that everyone is mailed. Isn't that correct? And I'd like to verify that. I'll verify that with Joseph or Miss Stanley or Sarah. But you can now actually see the value notice, just not all of the information is not going to be there.
And all the notices have all gone out. So for some folks that said that they didn't receive theirs, they need to go online to look, or do they need to call and ask about it if they didn't get it?
So it may not be posted. Joe, you want to weigh in on that? There are
Sorry,
some.
I was answering something in the chat. Can you repeat the question?
The value notices, have they all gone out? So for some folks that say, oh, I haven't received mine yet, or I never got it.
We mail majority of the valuation notices.
Okay.
But if yours hasn't gone out, or it says that you're still it's still pending. If you look at it on hcat.org, that means we haven't mailed it out yet. But you can file your protest as of May 15th or 30 days after you receive your notice, whichever is later. So that's how much time you have for that. You could always call up to HCAT to see if yours has been sent out. And then, you know, as usual, check your mail just to make sure that you've gotten it. If you haven't received it and they say it's been mailed out by a certain date, try to contact us or come up and get your notice. They can give it to you at the office.
Okay, just want to make sure.
One
for
other
those
thing I
that
might
are-
add.
I just wanted to make sure to verify that for those folks that are panicking that, you know, oh, it's May 15th is the deadline, but I haven't gotten mine yet, so that they know.
Oh, yeah, sure. And one other thing I would like to add to, some people may have forgotten that maybe perhaps you have used an agent in the past, you used an agent last year. That notice may, if you've assigned an agent to your account, that notice may have gone to your agent. You can still check it online. However, in order to get that agent removed from your account, we have a file that you would need to fill out the agent removal form so that they can start going back to you and not to whatever tax agent you may have assigned them to in the past.
And just as a reminder also for folks, if you'd like to unmute yourself and ask your question, if you still have questions, please feel free to do that or to raise your hand and we can call on you to ask your questions. But I was just going through some of the questions in the chat as well as some of the questions that were emailed to me. Next question here. If someone is turning 65 in November, can that person request the exemption in November, or they have to wait for the following year? If they're turning 65 in November, when can they file for their exemption? They're over
Right
60.
now.
Okay.
They can apply right now, anytime during the year that you will turn 65.
And you do get it once again for that entire year. If you've forgotten to file for yours and say you turned 65 last year, we will go back. The law allows HCAT to go back 2 years to grant that exemption.
Okay. Someone had the question again. Can you explain what an airship exemption is?
Okay.
Airship exemption is when a property owner passed away and he doesn't have, or he or she doesn't have a proper documentation like a will or a probate will. The heirs can live in the property in the property and get 100% exemption on there. Now, let's say there's 4 or 5 heirs, so each heir gets 25%. If only one heir stays at the house, they can get 100%, 100% residential and, or any other exemptions. But if there are multiple heirs that live at the property, you will only get your percentage of what you own, like 25%.
Okay. Going through here. Airship. Can airship? No, airship does not apply to the minors, so never mind. Go and read that one. How can you get an error corrected on the building description, for example, a frame garage or an enclosed porch?
As I'll state in there, you can file your protest. And then if you bring that into your informal meeting, it could be corrected at that time. Or in your formal hearing, it can also be corrected.
Okay, I see your hand is up. Go ahead and ask your question.
Good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I've got a 2-part question. The first question I was hearing that if I should lose my spouse, that my exemption goes to 50%. Is that correct? Did I understand that correctly? And then the second part of my question is, If the only way to get the I-file number is through the paper method. And again, you all said if you don't, then you can get online, but you can't get it, you cannot get it through the online method. So what is the alternative for those that are disabled or unable to get down to HCAD?
Okay, repeat the first part of the question.
Okay.
The first one.
The first part of the question, I understand that your homestead exemption drops by half if you are not a married couple. So if you should lose your spouse, then that exemption goes down half. Am I correct in that?
No.
No.
No, so
Ashley,
if you're married, if you're legally married and your spouse passes away, in Texas law, the property goes straight to the spouse at 100%. Now, if you're not married and you are both owners, then yes, you will still have your 50%. It's kind of complicated. There's a lot of stuff that goes into that. It'll be in the state of his, and if he has any siblings or anything like that, if he doesn't do a will to give you total ownership, then yes, you will be at 50%. But if you're married, it goes straight to the spouse at 100%.
Okay, so as long as that spouse is alive, correct?
Correct.
Okay, all right. And then the second part of the question was, if we do not receive the paper form of the valuation notice, and I understand that's the only way that you plan to protest, that is the only way you're going to get your I-file number. What is the alternative to those who can't get to HCAD to get the I-file number so that you can protest in a timely manner or by the 15th?
Oh, okay, I can answer that, or at least part of it. You would need to file a disclosure, I'm not sure what it's called, someone help me with you would need to file a public information request. And we can get you that information that way. And also, if you already have protested in the last couple of years or so, you can, then that I-file number should be a part of your account.
So I'm hearing you say, Ms. Menifee, that the I-file number never changes.
No, it does not.
It just stays with the account as long as the account is active.
That is correct. You can also obtain it through the you can also get it through the mobile app. And I'm gonna let
you just muted yourself, Ms. Mabel.
there are a couple additional ways that you can get it. So all is not lost. I'm waiting. If someone might want to jump in here in terms of someone from HCAD can always help you with how you can get it. But what I recommend to everyone is please do not wait until the last day or two if you don't have your I-file number to try and get it, because it may take a few days to get that information back to you.
Yes, so you can call into HCAD and talk to request open records, or you can email open records with an S at hcad.org and request your value letter, and they could send it to you. I'm not sure via email, but I know definitely they could send it to you certified mail. So that's one thing that you can do.
Thank you, Ashley. And now you know why we have Ashley on these calls.
Yes, ma'am. You're welcome. Anytime.
But just to clarify that you all are sending out notices via sending them out electronically as well. It not necessarily through paper or through the mail.
So if you've opted into electronic documents and you get an email saying your value notice is ready, what you'll have is an attachment that is that paper form. It will look just like the paper form, is my understanding, is it will look just like the one you would have gotten mailed, except that it's, you know, in like a PDF document, and it should have that same iFile number on there and all the same information. If that's not correct, somebody correct me, but that's my understanding of how those electronic ones work.
But that's only if you opted to receive the electronic version. Otherwise, it should only come in the mail.
Correct.
Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. There was a question here. If one had protested and met with the board and the appraisal had been changed and lowered last year, would someone need to protest again the next year, especially if the appraisal doubled past what they appraised it from the year before?
Yes,
Yeah.
we reappraise values every year. So you need to apply for a protest every year. No matter what the change is, if you don't agree with your value, protest it every single year.
Mhm.
And every year stands on its own. So what the results of that protest were the previous year don't necessarily have any bearing on your protest in the current year. Every year is a new year.
Okay. And for those homeowners that have their still have a mortgage and their property taxes are escrowed, when you see that huge increase in your tax bill, know that your mortgage is going to go up to make up the difference to collect those tax payments so that you could have enough to make that payment for the following year. So if you've got a $5,000 increase, divide 5,000 by 12, your monthly mortgage is going to go up by that amount to make sure that you have enough to cover that property tax bill for the following year. So you definitely want to protest and pay attention to those notices when they come in the mail.
Correct, and I just because as we discussed in the past, by the time, if you don't protest, you want to open that letter. Some people might go, oh, I escrow, so they'll throw their HCAT appraisal letter in the drawer and not really look at it. But you want to look at it to make sure it's correct, particularly if you recently bought your home. You can always bring in the sales disclosure form to show what you paid for it. But to make a long story short, by the time the tax bills come out, your mortgage company is simply going to pay what the tax bill has been calculated at. And then the following January is when you're going to get a new escrow statement that's going to show how much your taxes are going up to. So you want to pay close attention to that appraisal notice now, so that if you want to protest, you have the opportunity to change that outcome now.
Mhm.
And another thing I wanted to add was that for a lot of people, we encourage people to file protest because you may look at it and say, I totally disagree. This is wrong. I don't know what HCAD was thinking when they placed that value. And as Sarah said, and I just want to reiterate this, that there is no sales disclosure in the state of Texas. That is the law. And so by filing that protest, that provides the legal mechanism for us to share the information, for HCAD to share the information with you on the sales that we use to value your home. You may get those, look at them and say, oh, well, I guess they were right after all. But go ahead and do that. That way you can you'll have the information in hand.
Okay. Next question here. How many years back is the appraised value calculated from home sales from the last 2 years? And is the protest board supposed to take the lowest comparable to be fair?
So I'll take that. We value properties each and every year. There are cases with neighborhoods that sales are scarce. The tax code does allow us to go back up to 36 months. And in terms of the other question, does the ARB have to look at the lowest possible comp? It's no rule that states that an appraiser that represents HCAT or the ARB have to look at any highest comp or lowest comp. We're really going to look at all the evidence that's presented on both sides.
Okay. And do you all still, are those cards still going out every year that shows what exemptions have been applied to your home?
Yes, we still send out those confirmation cards, usually in December, that show which exemptions have been applied to your account. And that's a good way for a lot of folks to be reminded that if something has changed, that's when you need to notify the appraisal district. So it's kind of a reminder for that too.
Let's see, so somebody just confirmed. So I just logged on to my account, click the I file protest tab, enter in the user ID and a password, select the value notice. Okay, never mind, disregard that, sorry. I received a solar exemption form. Do I need to file that? I do have solar panels, and do I need to mail this, or can this be submitted online? What's a solar exemption?
A solar exemption is where they get those solar panels on their house and they get an exemption for it. I'm not sure. I'm not sure if you can file it online, but I know you can do it through the mail. Submit the application and read thoroughly through the application and make sure you're not missing anything. Because if you miss one little item, they'll send that documentation back and you'll have to wait additional 30 days. But send in that information of the solar panel exemption. Send your detailed description of the solar panel information. And I'm not sure if you need your driver's license, but read through the application, send it through the mail certified.
There is a form online under the residential exemptions. It's a form 11.27, exemption for solar and wind powered energy devices.
What's the value of that exemption? So that's not one that we talk about.
No, that's in total exemption. That's in another department.
Usually it takes the cost of putting that solar exemption on, and it deduct that from the value of the property.
Oh,
I have a property that has that, and they'll ask for the installation cost, they'll ask for the estimate quotes, and they'll ask for the actual work to apply for that exemption. And once that, let's say on our property, let's say if your property is valued at 100,000 and it costs you 40,000 to put on that. And so basically the exemption allows for that cost to be subtracted from your valuation, your appraisal.
And that's for that 1 year of installation. That's a 1 year thing, one-time thing, right?
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
That was my next question.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I'm gonna digress a little bit on this. Okay. We did it because I have people that does that stuff for me, but for our audience, and this is totally off field, so don't write in and complain. I'm just talking as a homeowner. If you're going to install these solar panels and stuff, very importantly, read the contract and especially read the fine prints. Okay, you're going to see online, they say, hey, we're doing it for free, it doesn't cost you anything. I beg to differ. You have to read that contract, because when I read some of the commercial stuff that's out there, they basically put themselves ahead of the tax office in terms of filing a lien on your property. Okay, and when you're selling that property, it depends on, again, how that contract is structured. It's an extra different loan that your buyer would have to qualify with them to inherit that solar panel system. So just as a consumer, just as a a residential homeowner, not on behalf of the tax office or anyone, but just as a person in the neighborhood, I'm saying, read that contract carefully, read it 5 times. Don't just read it twice, read it 5 times and look at the fine prints. The law allows for these companies to be extremely powerful. So they set some very questionable terms in their free installation of your materials.
Wow. Okay. Can a homestead property be appraised as a tear down home, highest and best use case being to replace with a new home? Or is it only possible for a commercial owner or a landlord renting a property?
I'll take this one. So a residential property can be classified, the term tear down, what that refers to in certain areas is where the land value now far exceeds the value of the actual building. And we call building an improvement. So not only, I guess they mentioned a commercial can be classified that way, a residential home that is your homestead home can also be considered a tear down, but we can call that an economic misimprovement home. Well, that home can also be a person's homestead property.
Okay. If you buy a home when you are 66, do you file for an exemption then? It says over 65 versus 65 and over. So they're trying to clarify, is it 65 and over or is it over 65?
Oh,
Meaning that
60, it's 65 and over, but how they say it is over 65, but
Okay.
65 and over.
Okay, got it. All right, so that was that one. There was another one that was emailed to me. Go over that one.
Hey, Nia,
Yes, ma'am.
did you all answer the one that I posted on chat?
Yes.
I didn't listen, I didn't hear it. Could you answer
Uh,
that question again? I apologize.
It was the one about the appraisal review board. I believe Joseph answered that one. Let me go back.
Sorry about that, guys.
What file type was that? Oh, if one had protested and met with the board and the appraisal has been changed and lowered last year, would someone need to protest again next year, especially if the appraisal doubled past what was appraised for the year before? So meaning that it was appraised at one value one year, you protested it, but then the following year, it's double the amount of what it was from the year before you did the protest from last year.
Right, because they lowered it down. And what the lady was telling me is they lowered it down lower than what it was appraised for last year. And that's what we were talking about coffee and conversation yesterday. They lowered it down for what it was. They appraised it last year, and the board agreed to what it was lowered to. So now for this year, they appraised it twice as much as what they appraised it before. Can they do that? And if they can do that, I guess you would have to protest it again, correct? Or I didn't know what to tell her, so I told her to ask.
A couple of things to be specific. If she's talking about her appraised value specifically, and she has her homestead and everything, that can't go up more than 10%. But if she's talking about her market value, that can go wherever the sales go. So if that is what her market value went up double, it can do that because if that's what the sales are showing, that's what's going to happen because of the law. Every year, I would recommend she protest, especially in this case, if you're saying it went up double, definitely come into protest so she can have access to that information, the sales and things of that nature, and she can, come in and say, hey, this is my issue with the current valuation.
Okay, if that's the case, if that's her homestead, she did, worst case scenario, she didn't know anything about exemptions and so on and so forth. And then that's the case where it actually doubled. If she says, oh, well, I bought it at this price 2 years ago, last year, whatever, she can then still go back and file her homestead exemption and attach her cap, or does her exemption start from that point that she realized, oh, now I can take advantage of this? What does her cap then start at?
I was gonna let Ashley take that one.
Yeah,
Can you-
because
What? Can
Yeah.
you repeat that again?
Okay, so if she, say for instance, bought a house, $100,000. Value doubled, now it's $200,000, and she didn't know anything about filing a homestead exemption. So if she went, if she can go back, if she can go back and file exemption for 2
yeah.
years, where does her cap start? Does it start at what it was when she bought it, when she applied 2 years ago, or does it start right now?
It starts when she applied 2 years ago.
But no, but she didn't apply, is what I'm
But
saying.
if she's requesting going 2 years back, depends what tax year she's applying for. So if she
Okay.
applies for 2 years back, her cap will start for tax year 2021.
Okay, cool. All right, good deal.
So let me just go back to that other question. So when you're talking about the market value, again, remind me, just to remind everyone, you should protest if you feel like the appraisal, the market value of your home should be lower, correct?
Correct.
That's so important, everyone. And I need everyone, and this is just from, I'm not giving any advice here, just informational. I think that process, everyone should understand that you should protest the market value, not the cap value, correct? The market value of your home is completely different than the cap
Correct.
value.
Correct, because when
Correct.
you
The
change
market
your
value
market
is your-
value, your appraised value would change with your exemptions on top of it. So yes.
And you
So
should we always recommend protesting regardless of everything, because you at least get your information each year. So it has, not even even if you don't have an issue, protest so you can take a look at what's going on in your area.
And I love that, because that's one thing that we last year we got educated on, and then I were really excited because once you protest, that's when you get your evidence of what they're using to appraise your market value.
Correct.
I love that. Could you reiterate that again, just for those that don't understand why they should protest the appraisal of their market value of their home?
Right, so Texas
Yes,
is a
one- Go ahead.
oh, go ahead, Joe. No, you got it.
Yes, like I said, Texas is a non-disclosure state. They don't have to share their sales information or things like that. We do get a lot of that information based on the vendors we use. So if you protest, you're able to see what kind of sales are occurring in your neighborhood, how it's trending, things you can look forward to as far as your value goes year to year. And you don't have access to that information if you don't protest.
Okay, and to answer Ms. Rodriguez's question, she says the market value determines our increase in our mortgage payment.
Yes. No, it's
Sort
the
of.
taxes.
It's the taxes. If you have a fixed rate mortgage, your principal and your interest does not change. However, what can increase your mortgage payment is your taxes and your insurance. So if your taxes are going up and you're not protesting the value of your property taxes and that increase goes up, then yes, your monthly payment goes up because that amount
Because of your escrow.
Exactly.
Okay, Marshall, you have your hand up. You have a question?
Yes. My question relates to a floodplain. In recent years, the area where we live, I guess the capability to flood has increased some. So what approach would I use to protest with the understanding that I possibly live in a floodplain, and that the probability of being flooded increases every year? So what approach would I use?
That's a great question. I don't have the answers, so someone else answer, but
Simple question. Houston is called the Bayou City. everybody can flood at any time. So just know that it's not
Touchdown.
house is gonna flood, it's a matter of when. So
It's
that
not even if you're in the floodplain or not.
it depends on if you're in the floodplain at that moment, because
Well,
you-
let me just follow up a little bit. When this is in Northwest Houston. So when we first moved there, it wasn't a
it's not.
floodplain.
Mhm.
And then after the big rains, and also to add to it, the location is in I guess close proximity to the Addicks Reservoir. So so could I use that as let's just say as a
Good question.
as evidence to fight my case as far as property value? Because the property value is going up in the neighborhood. It's just that the possibility, the probability of flooding has gradually increased we've been at 20 years and it's increased over the past 5 or 6 years. So I need some kind of leverage to kind of work toward reducing the property tax if that's possible.
And also the cost of your flood insurance.
Yes, that's correct. That's correct.
But it doesn't change the value of the home though. So if people are still moving in and sales are still going on, regardless if that area is flooding or not, it doesn't do anything for the actual market. It hasn't deterred the market at all. If people were moving out of your neighborhood because now your area is now considered a flood zone, then that can impact, what your evidence could be. But if people have not decided they're not living over here because I didn't sign up for a flood area and now it's flooding and we're all moving, that will make a difference.
But I would protest anyway.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Still protest.
We protest every year. It's just that we're not really getting anywhere. So I just was trying to find an angle this year so I could probably be more, get a positive result as opposed to just the same results every year.
Joe or Jamie, you have anything you want to add to
I
it?
would love to jump in. Yep, I would love to jump in. From our standpoint, we do not see a property that is lying in a floodplain, whether 100-year, 500-year, that has not impacted the market value of the home, right? If it has, we would see it. If a property has been damaged, then we will look at the damages and costs associated to that. With anything, we're going to look at the market value every year. Even let's say people leave a certain area due to a floodplain, we haven't seen that happen. So we're going to look at if any property is damaged as a result of a flood, that is a way that we can correlate damage or value loss with market. Just because a property lies in a floodplain, that I have not seen it where we take away a value or an amount from market value due to a property just lying in a floodplain.
We
Okay,
try.
thank you.
Sorry, Ms. Marshall.
Okay, appreciate
Mr.
your-
Marshall, let me add this as a property owner. Some of the easiest way that evidence that you can get when you go to protest, first of all, look at your neighborhood. And really, when you see a for sale sign, just be a snoopy neighbor and go online and say, how much is that property being sold for? Okay, so that's the first thing. And the second, when you file your property protest notice, the appraisal district will send you comparables in the protest report. Look at those comparable that they're saying, hey, your neighbor is selling this had sold this property for X dollar. Look at those property and see how does your property compare up to that. Do they have granite countertop? Do they have low efficiency windows and yours don't have? Take that and start knocking that against what you don't have compared to what they have it on sales. Okay. And then third of all is if you have these repairs, get estimates. Okay, get estimates to show the appraiser when you do these hearings with them, show the appraiser, look, this is how much it's going to cost for me to repair my property. Okay,
thank you. Okay,
so
thank you.
Yeah, just as a property owner, and just as my friend Myers says, always protest because the appraisal district puts on these hearings so that you can bring the information to provide for them so that they can reconcile and update records as necessary, and it's not a fight.
Okay, thank you.
when you're looking at your thing online and it says non-certified or not certified, what does that mean? Because someone just put a copy of that in the chat. When you're looking at your
Basically, that's
HCAT
that
account.
we're currently in the equalization or the protest period. And so that means we can't send you a certified value to the taxing jurisdictions until we've given you the opportunity to protest your value. So we have 4 different periods that go throughout the year. And currently the period that we are in is called the equalization period, which is where we allow people to protest their values and then come to that value. Once all those protests have been done, we certify those values and send them out to the taxing jurisdictions, and that's where you get your bill from.
Okay, back to the property taxes and heirship and tax deferral. If the heirs are only minors, the mother is not married to the father, how do we go about making sure that the property does not accumulate so much taxes for the minors to get, for the minors?
Yes, unfortunately, you have to be 18 years of age to own a home and to get an exemption. So, and unfortunately, you can't get a deferral. You're unable to get a deferral unless you have the exemptions on the account for over 65 and disability. So, I guess would set up a payment plan with the tax office.
And I'd also suggest, it sounds like a Lisa question, so they might also want to tune into the next clearing title on inherited property workshop that Amos provides monthly.
And you know what? I was thinking about that this morning. I was talking to a senior yesterday during coffee and conversation, and her daughter was with her. And one of the things she wanted to know, should she protest, even though she is not paying any taxes right now, but the appraisal of her home keeps going up, even though she's not paying any taxes? Should she protest every year to make sure that the appraisal of her home is not so high that when her children get the property, that the appraisal of her home, because once she passes, the over 65 exemption is gone. Once she passes, the homestead exception is gone. So she was asking us, okay, I know I don't pay taxes, but should I protest the market value of the home every year just to make sure that the appraisal market value is not so high for when my kids or my estate get, you know, the heirship, get the property? Is that something that you all would think that that's something that a senior should do, even though she's not paying taxes?
Yeah.
Okay, answers it, yes.
Yeah, she could always protest and on the value, and that's a strategy that a lot of people use is they protest each year. So what you kind of doing is kicking back that market value a little bit each year, so that you're so that it doesn't eventually catch up with your appraised value. And Joe or Jamie, if you want to jump in, but that's that's a generally accepted practice among many homeowners.
I don't think a lot of seniors understand that, because a lot of seniors think, hey, I'm not paying any taxes, so
I don't need to file I don't need to protest.
I don't need to protest. But when she was talking to me and I was looking at her daughter, and our eyes just went, yeah, you should protest. Just because you're not paying taxes right now, your heirs will be responsible for paying those taxes once they get your property, and the over 65 exemptions are gone, as well as your homestead exemption will be gone. So, Jamie, what do you think?
This Jamie or the other Jamie? There are 2 Jamies.
Oh, there's 2 Jamies.
Yeah, there's tax Jamie and there's appraisal Jamie. That's why I've been trying to be a good Jamie.
Both Jamies, I guess, because you got 2 different ideas. So that would be great.
I'm always on the fence to say this is, what do you have to lose when you protest? Except for a lower tax bill. So spend a little time, drive around the neighborhood, look, and then just, make sure you do your due diligence, prepared all the paperwork and go to protest because, if you get a reduction in value, that means you get a reduction in your property tax statement comes October, November, December, okay? Because if you wait until the end of the year and you get mad and you get angry that you're getting this tax bill, it's too late. And that's why, as our partnership here, we're trying to provide the information so that this is when you need to take action. Okay, before May 15th, before the 30 days is up once you receive your property value notice, because you need to notify the appraisal district of your intention to protest. That's what kickstarts the whole process. Okay, don't wait till December to say my tax bill is too high. Well, we're all going to cry for you, but we can't help you to reduce your tax bill. Speaking as a tax office agent, speaking as a property owner, it does take a little bit of time, but it does mean savings. And you're in control.
Especially if you're a senior, even though you're not paying taxes, protest the appraisal of your home, the market value, just to protect your generational wealth, passing it on to others. Got it. Thank you.
One more question here, and I know Mr. Carr just answered it in the chat. The neighborhood we live in is old, but being flooded with all the new home construction, how will this affect our own taxes?
As I was stating in the chat, it depends on the sales that have occurred and their comparableness to the property owner's property. We're always going to look at all the sales in the neighborhood, whether that's new, but we also have stuff like looking at how old the property is. We're looking at the size that's comparable to the property. So all those things can be a factor. But again, mostly if it's in your neighborhood, it will affect you in some way, but it might not be a lot.
When you got, and I understand where this gentleman's question is coming from. When you've got new developments that are coming into your neighborhood or in your area, they start digging, they start clearing, doing all kinds of things. And now the water, how it used to pass and, roads away on your street, now it's all accumulating in front of your house or in your backyard or so on and so forth. People really need to start going to and listening at a lot of the planning meetings, the city commission meetings, to know what's going on in your area and what the planned developments are what's going on, what's planning on coming into your neighborhood, and oppose it. Because these are the kind of things that happen when the community doesn't show up to protest. I don't want a brand new multi-level apartment complex in my backyard. You have to show up for those meetings. Oh, why is my hand up? Why is it showing my hand up there? I have a hand up and I'm talking. Why is it there?
You're the moderator.
This is Zoom. Zoom does its own thing. Zoom does its own thing. But at any rate, those were pretty much all the questions that were emailed to me. Some of the other ones were pretty much repetitive of what you guys have already answered. So are there any other questions from any of the audience members that you'd like to ask before we kind of wrap up and go? Jamie or Sarah, is there anything else that you guys would like to add after we had this conversation and answered, a lot of these questions that kind of triggered something else to come up? Go ahead.
Yeah, there's one thing that I feel like I heard or saw that I just want to make absolutely certain is clear. If you go to the property search on our website and you pull up your account, and for tax year 2023 and under your value, it shows pending. That means we have not set and noticed your value yet. Your notice has not gone out yet. If it shows pending rather than a value on your account for tax year 2023, your value has not been set yet. But if you haven't received a notice and you go online and there is a number there for your value, then we have valued your property and sent out a notice and you just haven't received it yet, or whatever the case may be. But if it says pending on there, we have not valued your property yet or sent out that notice.
All right.
I just want to add, on behalf of Ms. Ann Harris Bennett, thank you for joining us today. This is the time for action, especially this year is when the state legislatures meet. As I've said in my presentation, the state legislatures represent the people, but they need to hear from you. They need directions from you as far as, certainly right now, there are discussions as far as should the appraisal cap be 5%, 7%, 3.5%? Should the homestead exemption be at an X dollar amount? Okay. They need to hear from you, and you need to participate in the process, not just wait until December and say your tax bill is too high, because the next time the state legislature meet, it'll be 2 years from now. Okay, so in that 2 years from now, you would have paid 2 more years of a higher tax bill, or accept a higher tax bill. Okay, so for this forum, we've talked about protesting, we've talked about exemptions, we've talked about payment plans. We want you to make the best use of that. And if you have friends and families that are in this situation, please refer them to the tax office, to the appraisal district, or to any one of our partners on this forum. We're here to help you, and we'll do our best to answer the questions for you. Thank you.
Question here. What kind of information can real estate agents provide to help with protests? Comps. If you know someone that's interested in protesting their property taxes, that could be a niche. As a real estate agent, I would say, if you want to create that niche to say, hey, if you want to protest your property taxes, call me and I will, run some comps for you.
But do keep in mind, we're valuing as of January 1st. So the closer to that date, the better for those comps.
Okay.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. So it's closer, if you'll get that report closer to January 1st, next year or last year?
Last.
Last,
Next
okay.
year. So for all of this tax year for 2023. So whatever's going on in the market right now, we valued as of January 1st of this past year. So if you are in conversation with a real estate agent and asking them for comps that are going on right now are going to be less relevant than ones that happened as close to January 1st of this past year as possible.
Okay, thank you for telling me that, because we did not know that. That's great information.
The caveat to that is don't bring any information that is past January 31st of this year, because we go from January to January. And so if you're bringing something from February, that's going to go towards the next valuation.
So January 31st of 2023.
Yes, January 1st of 2022 to January 31st of 2023. Those are the sales we looked at for the year. But the closer you are to January 1st of 2023, that's closest to the valuation date that we're trying to achieve.
Now, see, I never knew that. And every time I was going up in front of the board, I was bringing them the latest.
Right
so
now.
Thank you. That is
Yes,
great.
usually what people end up bringing is stuff that's around the time that their actual hearing is. And we're valuing as of January, so it has nothing to do with the time the actual hearing is.
Could you guys repeat that again? And I know I'm a repeater, but a lot of times people are not listening and understanding. Could you repeat that process again and explain why?
Yes, the valuation date is January 1st of each year. So your actual hearing comes after that, because we have to let you file your protest, we have to get you scheduled, and then we have to get you into a hearing. And so since your hearing is after that, it's way after the actual valuation date. So we're looking at sales before that. We can't value your property based on what we think will happen in the next 6 months. We have to do it on actual evidence, which is actual sales that occurred in the previous year. So that's January 1st of the previous year to January 31st of that current year. And we can go back up to 36 months, but we're looking for the ones that are closest to January 1st of the current year.
So you can go back 36 months? Could you repeat that?
By law, we can look at sales of up to 36 months prior. But we're going to be trying to value based on the most recent sales.
So don't make the mistake that I do and I bring the actual, the same month information.
Yeah,
Correct. Go ahead.
for sales comps, for condition issues, for all information that you want to present, we are valuing as of January 1st past. So if you're bringing in condition issues, comparable sales, all of that, be as close to January 1st of the previous year as possible, or not the previous year, but January 1st of this year, because those condition issues, same thing. If your home was fine on January 1st and after that, you know, sometime later before your protest, something happened, it flooded, it burned down, it had some, you know, some other major condition problem that was not present on January 1st, you know, kind of like what Miss Jamie from the tax office said, we're going to definitely sympathize with your situation and feel very bad for you, but we're valuing as of January 1st when your property was fine, and that information is going to be relevant for the following year when that condition issue will still be the case. So yeah, all that information we're valuing as of January 1st. And I know that can be kind of difficult to wrap your head around when by the time you're meeting with us, it's now June or July, right? But we're valuing as of January 1st.
That's great information. Thank you.
Question, how will homeowners have access to prior year information, sales conditions, issues to support the protests? Find a real estate agent.
Yeah. And they'll do it for you for free. Some, I'm not sure. I don't want to say that, but some.
Ask somebody if they know who a local real estate agent that you could actually use to get that information. And yeah, they're out there. All right. With that being said, thank you all very much for joining us this afternoon. We are a couple of minutes over our scheduled time. The information is great, but the conversations flow and make it even better. So I thank you guys very much for sticking around for these last couple of hours. We hope the information that you all received, you found it to be beneficial. We will be emailing a link of this recording of this session along with the chat so that you can see all the questions that were asked in the chat session and how they were answered. So all that information will be provided as well. Or you can also go back to our Amos Houston TX Facebook page and watch the recording there. But again, it will be emailed out to everyone along with some resources and other information that was provided here today. So thank you, Jamie. Thank you, Miss Mabel. Thank you, Sarah, Joseph, and Jamie. And I know Miss Vicky was in the chat also answering questions. So thank y'all very much. We really appreciate you all. Oh, and Ashley, I'm sorry, Miss Ashley. I'm sorry. Thank you guys for providing this information to the community. And know that information that's provided here, if you are outside of Harris County, it's similar information. I mean, it's a different location, but pretty much the same kind of information if you're in a county outside of this. The process is usually the same for protesting and setting up hearings and things of that nature as well. So with that being said, we want to welcome you guys to come back and join us for another month of service presentation. Tomorrow we have our HOA foreclosure workshop. So if you are having issues with your HOA association, and you're wondering about how what they are legally allowed to do and how they can or cannot foreclose and what they can foreclose on you for, then definitely want to join us for that presentation. That's tomorrow at 1 o'clock via Zoom as well. So I will also be emailing the May calendar so that if there's other workshops that we are offering that you guys would like to attend, then make sure you sign up and register for that. There is also a link being provided for our survey. If there are sessions that we don't currently offer that you all may be interested in, something that may have sparked or triggered a conversation that you want more information about, then please reach out to us and let us know. That's the only way that that the partners can know what information to actually provide to the community based on the feedback that we receive from all of you. But again, we want to thank you for continuing to support. Thank you for coming out. You have a wonderful remainder of your afternoon, and you all take care of yourselves, and we'll see you next time. All right.
Bye, everyone.
Thanks all.
Bye, thank you. Bye-bye.